And Bitcoin is a truly free market that doesn't protect you from reality, from the truth. It's a very raw and real experience. And so seeing Bitcoin lead the market and crash down and be in these bear markets, it's gut-wrenching, it's hard. But I've given this motivational speech before. This is the part that makes it all worth it, right? Obviously, you could buy the top forever if you want, and there's no problem with that strategy. But the people that say, "Oh, I wish I got into Bitcoin early. I wish I was there to buy the dips. I wish I was there last bear market," those people just got lucky. Well, everyone wants to buy the dip until it's time to buy the dip, and that time's now. This is where it's painful. This is where it hurts.
Bitcoin is currently trading at $61,659.66, carrying a market capitalization of $1.2 trillion and processing over $44.4 billion in daily trading volume. These are not the numbers of failing assets. These are the numbers of the world's most powerful financial instruments, moving through one of its greatest historical opportunities. Renowned analyst Jack Mallers assessed Bitcoin's market cap near $1.29 trillion, a figure that underlines just how deeply embedded Bitcoin has become in global finance. Yet the number that truly commands investor attention is Bitcoin's all-time high of $126,160, reached on October 6, 2025. Unlike traditional markets, where governments print money, central banks intervene, and institutions receive bailouts, Bitcoin operates as a pure free market. No safety nets, no artificial floors. When Bitcoin falls, it falls honestly. When it rises, that rise is built entirely on real global conviction, and that is exactly what makes it extraordinary. It is the only major asset on Earth that cannot be inflated away, manipulated by policy, or rescued by institutional privilege. Every single Bitcoin bear market in history has eventually produced a new all-time high. Every crash became a launchpad. Every period of fear became, in hindsight, the moment investors wished they had acted. Mallers remind us that most people recognize opportunity only after it has already passed, when prices are high, headlines are bright, and the window is firmly closed. That window is open right now. With 20 million BTC already in circulation and the total supply permanently capped, scarcity is not a promise. It is a mathematical certainty written into Bitcoin's very foundation. Before you dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest Bitcoin updates and market insights.
I'm talking to you all at a Bitcoin price of $64,320 US. That puts Bitcoin's market cap at a clean $1.29 trillion. Our all-time high made on October 6, 2025 remains. It's $126,160. We are almost 50% off that all-time high. We are technically 49% down from that all-time high that we made 259 days ago. The last Bitcoin block height that was mined, or Bitcoin block that was mined, was block height 954,906. There's no central planner that pads you and protects you. There's no one in Bitcoin that says, "Oh no, the market's going to close at 5," or "Oh no, there's a shock break absorber so that if Bitcoin's down 10%, then the market's halted and it can't go any lower." Bitcoin, you are experiencing the world as it truly is, which is hard for most people because most people have been conditioned and raised in a false reality. Politicians and central planners and big corporations have protected their life experience, has made sure oil was permanently affordable no matter how hard they worked, made sure that stocks couldn't go down too much, made sure that markets closed on time so you could have a beer with your friends. And Bitcoin is a truly free market that doesn't protect you from reality, from the truth. It's a very raw and real experience. And so seeing Bitcoin lead the market and crash down and be in these bear markets, it's gut-wrenching, it's hard. But I've given this motivational speech before. This is the part that makes it all worth it. Right? Obviously, you could buy the top forever if you want, and there's no problem with that strategy. But the people that say, "Oh, I wish I got into Bitcoin early. I wish I was there to buy the dips. I wish I was there last bear market," those people just got lucky. Well, everyone wants to buy the dip until it's time to buy the dip, And that time's now. This is where it's painful. This is where it hurts. This is where you get paid to show up and give this monetary network that is attempting to solve some of the world's hardest problems. It needs attention. It needs resources. You know, when people say, didn't your dad just get lucky buying Bitcoin in 2013? Said no, Bitcoin needed attention. It needed time, energy, effort, labor. It needed someone to start meetups. It needed someone like my dad to go on Reddit and answer questions. It needed someone to press buy, because if the price was always zero, we wouldn't be here today. And so what was the hard thing that people back then did? Well, before regulatory clarity, before institutional adoption, before a strategic reserve, before an ETF, when Bitcoin was written off as something that was surely going to go to zero, there were people that took their time, energy, effort, labor, and showed up. And those are the same characteristics that are going to get you paid today. If you guys want to know where Bitcoin's going, look at the DXY chart. Let's watch the strength of the dollar. The level of the dollar is all that matters. If the dollar gets too high, they're going to have to do something. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a rate cut. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw new legislation, some stimulus. They need a weaker dollar. It's just math. And I don't know when that's going to come. I don't know how long the bear market's going to last. But Bitcoin's been telling us that this whole time for many, many months now. And markets either scare you out or wear you out. And Bitcoin typically tries to do both. You got to hang in there. You got to stay humble. You got to stack sats. You got to turn your DCAs on. Or obviously don't and come back in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and, you know,
Bitcoin rose 2.5%, while the IBIT ETF gained 2.47%, mirroring Bitcoin's performance almost perfectly. On that same day, MicroStrategy fell 2.73%, moving in the opposite direction entirely. This divergence is not a coincidence. It is a warning every investor must understand. Jack Mallers has been clear. Bitcoin treasury companies do not always track Bitcoin's price. They carry corporate risk, financial obligations, and structural complexity that pure Bitcoin exposure simply does not. MSTR holds 847,363 Bitcoin valued at $64.1 billion, yet its market capitalization stands at only $53.2 billion. The market is pricing the entire company below the value of Bitcoin it owns. That gap is not shrinking. It is growing. Add to this $1.7 billion in annual dividend obligations and continuous share sales that dilute investor value over time, and the picture becomes even more sobering. MSTR can only outperform Bitcoin in one narrow scenario: if Bitcoin rises so rapidly that its massive holdings surge in value overnight. Even then, Mallers expect any outperformance to be limited and accompanied by far greater risk. Let's get back to the video.
Bitcoin was up 2.5% today. So on the left, I have the IBIT ETF. So IBIT was up 2.47% today, which I would think people that actually buy, there's nothing that replaces Bitcoin and cold storage. So I'm not even going to compare Bitcoin and cold storage to these two instruments. I think if you are not buying something like a Bitcoin treasury company, you're probably investing in IBIT. I don't know. You have a retirement account, you have some brokerage, you have some capital that can't buy Bitcoin and move it to cold storage. But if you look, IBIT today was up 2.5% and MSTR was down 2.73%. If you pull up Bitcoin versus MSTR, so this is BTC USD versus MSTR, Bitcoin is in a bull market against MSTR since the preferreds were introduced. I still don't totally understand them, but you know, let the market prove me wrong. I don't know. Who cares? If I end up being wrong and I lose out on one of the best investments ever, so be it. I prefer Bitcoin and cold storage anyways. I still don't understand what's going on, but whatever. I asked the questions. I got my answers. I stand 10 toes down. The last thing, people are asking me, well, do you think MSTR can outperform Bitcoin? What do you think is going to happen, Jack? Okay, the tweet from Jeff. The only bull case for MSTR is that if Bitcoin skyrockets higher quickly, then MSTR could outperform Bitcoin. If Bitcoin doubles from here, you'd have, and these are a bit stale, but just bear with me, you'd have $100 billion roughly on balance sheet, up from $50 billion. You'd have $0 billion in USD cash, which was used to pay the dividends. You'd have minus about $5 billion of debt, about $14.5 billion of prefs. So you'd have, call it like $85 to $90 billion of unencumbered Bitcoin if Bitcoin were to double for strategy. If you believe that MSTR stays at around the same MNAV, Jeff writes it shouldn't, but let's say that it does. So let's say strategy stays at this kind of 1.1 MNAV as defined by them, not the enterprise value that I'm used to, but their version of MNAV. So $100 billion in MSTR equity market cap, up from $40 billion today. So MSTR would do about a 2.4x, while Bitcoin and cold storage would do about a 2x. And Jeff writes, that only assumes that Bitcoin doubles quickly, and they aren't still on the hook for all of the dividends, which continue to eat away at their premium, and that they didn't have to sell a ton of Bitcoin or MSTR or more prefs to raise the dividends, all of which would dilute any possible MSTR gain. So MSTR could technically outperform, but slightly, and not enough outperformance to compensate for all of the risks.
In a market full of noise and uncertainty, the smartest Bitcoin decision is often the simplest one. Holding Bitcoin directly cuts through all the complexity. No corporate risk, no hidden costs, no middlemen taking a share of your future. Bitcoin-linked products may promise bigger returns, but promises mean nothing when conditions shift overnight. Real Bitcoin, held in your own hands, has always been and will always be the most powerful position an investor can hold. Will the next Bitcoin surge reward simplicity over leverage and financial engineering? If you found this analysis valuable, consider supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you don't miss future insights on Bitcoin, markets, and investing. Thanks for watching.